Hello, folks, and welcome to the program. I'm Brian with you here on the 5th of June, 2020. Tonight on the Colorcast, a very short story and an even longer lesson than it has for us. So sit back, relax, fire up that color teeny, and watch the pictures as they fly through the air. One day, making tracks in the prairie of Prax, came a north-going Zax and a south-going Zax. And it happened that both of them came to a place where they bumped where they stood, foot to foot, face to face. "Look here now," the north-going Zax said. "I say, you are blocking my path, you are right in my way. I am a north-going Zax, and I always go north. Get out of my way now and let me go forth." "Who's in whose way?" snapped the south-going Zax. "I always go south, making south-going tracks. So you're in my way, and I ask you to move, and let me go south in my south-going groove." Then the north-going Zax puffed up his chest with pride. "I never," he said, "take a step to one side, and I'll prove it to you that I won't change my ways if I have to keep standing here 59 days. "And I'll prove to you," yelled the south-going Zax, "that I can stand here in the prairie of Prax for 59 years, for I live by a rule that I learned as a boy back in south-going school. Never budge, that's my rule, never budge in the least, not an inch to the west, not an inch to the east. I'll stay here not budging, I can and I will, if it makes you and me and the whole world stand still." Well, of course, the world didn't stand still. The world grew. In a couple of years, the new highway came through, and they built it right over those two stubborn Zax and left them there standing unbudged in their tracks. Quite the abrupt end for our story, isn't it? And no happy ending either. Our northbound and southbound Zaxes are going to run into each other, but neither will budge. Not for 59 days or 59 years. Now that's stubborn. North-going Zaxes were taught to go north, and south-going Zaxes were taught to go south, both exclusively. They learned this from their schools, families, and friends. It was ingrained in their culture. In reality, though, the Zaxes, much like us humans, are able to go in either direction. And that does include east or west. The resolution is that one of the Zaxes could take a step to the side, or they both could, and the impasse would be resolved. But no, that didn't happen, because the issue became not with how to solve the problem or with what's possible. Rather, it comes down to a matter of pride for both Zaxes. If you remember the 7 deadly sins, pride was listed at the top, the deadliest. Oh, those foolish Zaxes. Let's stop and think about the Zaxes we encounter in our lives. Could you be one of them? And take the church, for example. I'm sure you have encountered those individuals that will always say, "No, it's always been this way. I'll leave if you change that." Well, the community of Christ cannot grow if we as individuals are not willing to change or consider another person's perspective and feelings. It's the "we won't budge," just like the Zaxes. If we could be honest with ourselves, we'd see that this fundamental problem pervades our relationships with family, community, our nation, and even the world. Stubbornness through pride and ideology are put ahead of people and even the precious gift of life itself. We see Zaxes controlling our political system on both ends of the spectrum. They're unwilling to listen or compromise. Growth doesn't happen because change suggests something was wrong before, and pride does not let that thinking happen. You may remember in the Gospel of Luke the parable of the prodigal son. Pride convinces the young son that he doesn't need anyone and he can make it on his own. Reality quickly sets in, and we see the son hitting absolute bottom With no other choice, he must give in and return home. The act of returning signifies his swallowing of pride, and thus change begins in him. The Zaxes couldn't do this. Their pride hardened, and no end to their impasse was in sight. As we frequently do, we check in with our Seuss theology expert, Reverend James Kemp. Hear his words. We know from our faith that God is not a God who keeps score. Like the shepherd in search of the lost sheep, God is not concerned about how we got lost. He's just happy to have us home. We never need to allow pride to stand in the way of returning to God, who will always run out into the field to meet us and welcome us with open arms. You know, in a world of strained relationships, we can let pride stand in the way, or we can risk reaching out. That risk may mean we were wrong, and others may say, I told you so. Or the other person may say, I was wrong too. We have entered the third decade of the 21st century with much conflict in the world. I can't think of a better time to take a risk and heal all the broken relationships. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next time.